Good evening. I'm Gary Grotto, the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times, and welcome to Meet the Candidates. Tonight, we'll present the first in a series of Meet the Candidates events, and we'll do one each night this week. At this point, I want to thank the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission for sponsoring these events. The Clean Elections Commission administers the Clean Elections Act, the Citizens Clean Elections Act, I should say, which voters passed in 1998. The act seeks to restore citizen participation and confidence in the political system, improve the integrity of the Arizona state government, and promote freedom of speech under the Arizona and U.S. Constitution. And to tell us more, please welcome Gina Roberts. She's the voter education director of the Citizens Clean Elections Commission.
Hi, Gary. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And of course, thank you to the Arizona Capital Times for hosting this event all week. It's a great opportunity for voters to learn more about the candidates, especially as early voting has already begun. To the voters, thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for taking the time to be an informed and educated voter. Just a few reminders before we get started about voting. As I mentioned, early voting has already started. So if you have not already received your ballot, check your mailbox. Hopefully it should be in there soon. If you are an independent voter, you can absolutely vote in the primary. Please just contact your county recorder as soon as possible if you want them to mail you a ballot, so you can let them know which party ballot to send to you. And then if you are filling out your ballot after this evening, please remember to sign that affidavit envelope. It's very important that your early ballot has your signature so that your ballot can be counted. Again, we are very proud and honored to sponsor this event, as the Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. We're happy to provide voters with all of the information that you need. It's accurate, it's official, it's nonpartisan, and it's all the information that you need to vote, whether it's early voting, voting in person, learning how elections are kept secure, or how your votes are tabulated. We have all of that information for you. So if you have any questions after the end of this evening, please feel free to visit our website, azcleanelections.gov, and we'll have the information that you need to cast your vote confidently. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this evening, and I hope you learn a lot from the candidates who are seeking your vote.
All right, thank you, Gina. So just a few housekeeping notes. Just want to let the viewers know and the candidates know that this is not a debate. The candidates are here to tell you about their campaigns and try to persuade you to vote for them. And it's an opportunity for you, the voter, to send in your questions. You can do that by putting them in the comment section. We'll try to get through as many questions as possible tonight. And we'll be bringing the candidates out in groups. After every group of candidates, we'll take a short break, a minute or two before we return with a new group. And finally, if you could subscribe and like the Morning Scoop channel, we'd be very grateful. So tonight we're going to present legislative districts 1 through 6. And in the meantime, we're going to take a very short break and we'll be back with the candidates. Well, welcome back. And we have with us tonight 3 candidates from Legislative District 1. And starting out with Selena Bliss, Republican, Kathy Ransom, Democrat, and Neil Sinclair, also a Democrat. So welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. And just wanted to start off by asking you each, why are you running for office? So Selena, would you go ahead and start for us?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. I love that question because of all the candidates, I've lived here the longest, and I'm running out of a desire to keep our area great, this district, this state. This is my home. We have a lot of potential here. We have a lot of rich history. I'm very engaged with the community. So I'm running to protect what we've got, but make better what we could or what we could achieve, if you will. We have a lot of work to do. As you know, these terms are short, they're every other year. We need people that are passionate about our communities, that are engaged and have experience and know the constituents. So that's, I think, what motivates me the most. Also, my grandfather served in this position for 17 years. So growing up from a family of public servants, I know what it's like to give back to the community. And I believe I'm ready to take my turn at it. So very glad to be here tonight and put some names to some of these faces.
Thank you, Selena. Kathy, would you like to chime in on that question?
Yes, I am running because I don't like the direction that our state legislature has taken our state. We need to be funding our public education. We need to be concerned about water in our rural areas, not just in Maricopa and the Tucson area. And I also am deeply concerned about the attempts to take away our voting rights. So those were things that I just could not stand by and watch happen. And I'm throwing my hat in the ring.
Great. And we're going to touch on some of those subjects that you just mentioned in a few minutes. Neil, why are you running for office?
Thanks for the question, Gary. I have got a background that's fairly broad, dealing with government agencies. I've been a consumer advocate in water, and I have expertise in that area. I've been involved in designing and creating photovoltaic systems, solar electric systems. And lastly, I've now been involved in developing mass transit systems that are electric and that can be solar powered. Now, these are technologies that for some people are new, but these have all been aired and vetted. And I think that we are in the midst of, I'll say, 3 different crises here. One of them is water and climate change. And out of that, we get drought, we get wildfires, and in fact, we get floods. We also have the COVID crisis, and we have, on the foreign policy issue, we have the war in Ukraine. So I mentioned those to say this is a very difficult time for the country and for sure in Arizona. And what I hope to do is to be able to bring my expertise and my knowledge to the state of Arizona. I'm very happily living here. It's a beautiful state. It certainly is in LD1. And so I look forward to contributing to the state as a whole.
All right. Thank you, Neil. So, Kathy, let's start with you this time. What do you see is the job of a legislator?
The only job of the legislature that is detailed in our Constitution is to create a budget. And that hasn't been happening very quickly or very efficiently lately. Obviously, the legislature needs to create bills, hopefully in the best interests of all Arizonans, and keep our state moving in the right direction. Make progress for our future. And that hasn't been happening very efficiently lately. So I'm hoping that I can join that discussion and create a little more care and compassion in our legislature.
Thank you, Kathy. Neil, you care to chime in?
Sure. Over half of the budget for the state of Arizona, and really for most states, is education. And if you look at where Arizona is ranked nationally in education. In per pupil spending, it's near the bottom. In teacher retention, I believe it is at the bottom. We've got the extremely low ratios of counselors to students. We really need, here is the more than 50% of the budget. And I agree with Kathy, that is the legislature's job, is to create that budget. And in education, it's been more than 30 years of a decrease in the national ranking for Arizona. So I see education as very important. Beyond that, we need to listen to the people, to the local municipalities, the county governments, the people, just average citizens on the street, listen to what the people's needs are, and to be responsive. That would be my answer.
Okay, Selena.
Yeah, with 1 minute to answer these questions, it goes quick. But in addition to the budget, a legislator is a lawmaker. They set the laws in the legislative branch of the government, if you will. They also represent their constituents, not only in their district, but the state. And legislators are leaders, not just in our state, but nationally. We look to other states for good legislation. I want people to look to Arizona to say, what are they doing in Arizona as well as LD1? We also lead through actions. So when I go out and talk about my campaign and myself as a candidate, I tell people, ask these candidates, what is it that they're doing about the issues that concern the voters the most, instead of just the talk. Actions speak louder than words. And lastly, as a conservative, I believe in Barry Goldwater's book, Conscious of a Conservative, in that all politics are local. So that's back to the question, what legislators need to do, and that's keep politics local. Stop the state overreach, the federal government overreach. Let's listen to our constituents and do what's best for our communities.
All right. Well, thank you, Selena. On to something someone mentioned already. So the governor just signed an $18 billion budget. And what are your thoughts on our spending priorities or the legislature's spending priorities? Neil.
Sure. One of them is water. And it looks like a lot of money was spent this last round on water. However, if you look closely, what we've really got is a top-down, big government solution, the Water Infrastructure Financing Authority, which will wind up financing some very expensive projects out of the surplus that really came from the COVID money from the federal government. So it's not a continuing surplus. And we'll see that spent on water. I was happy to see that the legislature did allocate $200 million for conservation, but 80% of Arizona is not a managed water area. And we don't know where the water is going. We don't know how much there is. So we really need to become much more of a management-oriented state in terms of water. And I think that would be obvious to everybody considering the crisis that the state is in. Beyond that, I mentioned education. I would like to see education much more fully funded. Some money has been allocated to that, but it's a very large allocation went to vouchers, and the people rejected vouchers. So the legislature is sort of foisting a voucher program when it's already being rejected through an initiative. So I would like to see a more realistic budget that is responsive to people's daily needs, not to ideology.
All right. Kathy, Are you happy with the budget?
Not especially.
Yeah.
Um, there was additional funding for education, and yet the voucher program took it away with the other hand. The water money, as Neil mentioned, it's extremely complex. What is proposed with water, there's the desalination plant, but as near as we can tell, that money isn't coming to Yavapai County. And as a representative for Yavapai County, I'm going to be asking, where's the water for Yavapai County? Because we need to know how much is being taken out of our aquifer, and we need to be able to make a plan with our local stakeholders, the people who live in this community and are worried, that this is their water that they need to use on a daily basis. And there's no discussion of local stakeholder planning for rural areas of Arizona in the budget.
Thank you, Kathy. And before Selena answers, I just want to let you know that we'll have time for only one more question after Selena answers. And so Selena, how do you like that budget?
Yeah, so this is going quick. I'm not happy with the final result. It was pretty high in that dollar amount, but when you do the drill down, we had to do a lot of negotiation and compromise, but some good things did come out of it. We paid out a lot of some of our debt, some of the debt we owed on some of the buildings. We did expand an empowerment scholarship account. So now we've expanded the choices parents have, so we're no longer discriminating against children and parents, that they have choices of what school fits best for them. So it's the money follows the child, and that honors our Parent Bill of Rights that's been around since 2010. We did allocate some money toward the state land, the last 20 miles, to reinforce our border. That's very important to our constituents as they see the illegal crossings and the inhumanity, the drug trafficking, the sex trafficking. We did fund PSPRS, the Public Service Retirement Pension System. That's been a burden to our small towns and municipalities. So we're going to help pay back our taxpayers in that regard. We did also increase funding to law enforcement. We, as mentioned earlier, we increased funding to water, not only conservation, but finding new sources. And we are listening to our local constituents. I'm a member of the CWAG, Citizens Water Advisory Council group. So we're listening to the science there, connecting those old laws that don't have that surface water and groundwater connection. And that's important in Legislative District 1. I could talk about the Verde River and the Big Chino Aquifer if I had more than a minute. And we also funded infrastructure, not only technology in the last mile with high fiber optics with for internet, but also our roads. I-17 in our district is very important, getting us from the north side of the state down to the south side. So not exactly happy. There was some compromise, but some good things did come out of it. We have more work to do, there's no doubt.
Okay, thank you. So the last question. What should be the priorities in the 2023 legislative session? Kathy?
Priorities, education, creating a more just economy for all of our residents. Our single moms are at the bottom of our economic ladder and they continue to struggle. We need to find creative ways like allowing local jurisdictions to have their own minimum wages based on their local cost of living. So taking the state and the big government out of those decisions. Locally here in the Verde Valley, people are extremely concerned about the short-term rentals. Sedona's housing stock is at 14% short-term rentals, and that has greatly reduced the long-term rentals for people, but also driven rental rates through the roof. So those are some things that the state should be looking at to help the local jurisdictions take back their power and listening to the citizens rather than bringing back things like a voucher program, which the citizens rejected 4 years ago. So those are some of the priorities that I would see us looking at.
Okay, Neil, real quickly.
Sure. I think that one of the keys is to get a legislature that is able to work together across the aisle, as they say, because the political polarization is helping no one. I really feel like, you know, the epithets and the name calling that we have seen more in the primary so far this year, but still silly, helps nobody and waste time and effort. Beyond that, I think water, again, all we have to do is look at Lake Powell and Lake Mead. The climate is changing and water is going to be a key. We've got to work on conservation, but also on regional planning, very importantly. Beyond that, I think education has to remain a priority because, as I said, it's more than half the budget. And we've got to do better with teacher retention. We're last in the United States in teacher retention. It's very expensive to train teachers and then have them leave because another state is paying them more, and they'll leave. That's why they have no choice. Beyond that, you know, I think the rest of it is it would be nice, as you may know, we are running, I am, and actually Selena is, as well as Kathy. We're all clean election candidates, and I would like to get and then keep corruption out of the politics. I'd like to see the legislature clean itself up. So if we can do all those things, I would say it would be a good year.
Thank you, Neil. Selena, your chance to hit our walk-off homer here.
Yeah, so, you know, I can tell already as we get past the primary and go into the general, there are some things we're going to agree on. The short-term rentals have devastated our district, not only on the Sedona side, but on the west side as well in Prescott area is starting to become a problem. Also on the Verde side are the off-highway vehicles. So we need to get together and work on that. But probably the number one thing facing our issue, as a nurse and a nursing educator for the last 36 years, I go by Maslow's hierarchy of needs in that you need oxygen, then you need water, then you need food, shelter, housing, and beyond. Water, it's critical. The drought contingency plan has been triggered much sooner than we thought. We sit on an active management area, one of the 5 in the state, the Prescott active management area. We have a disconnect through outdated water laws through groundwater and surface water. We have private residential wells that they think they're groundwater till that sinks, and now they're in the subflow. They're actually surface water. Those wells are going dry, and those folks have nothing to hang their hat on because of the disconnect. So there's a lot of work to be done. You know, I always said if it was easy, it would have been done by now. So I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get ready for the hard work. And thank you for this opportunity to get us started.
Thank you, Selena, and thank you, Kathy and Neil. And we're going to move on to our next legislative district, District 2. And once again, I appreciate you being here tonight, and good luck in the primary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
welcome back, and welcome to the folks that want to listen to Legislative District 2 and meet our candidate. We have one here tonight with us, and it's Representative Steve Kaiser, who's running for the Senate in LD2. He's a Republican. And how many terms have you had so far?
I'm in my first term, actually. So first 2-year term.
Okay, all right. So going to ask you questions that I've asked, the same questions that I asked the previous slate of candidates. But so why are you running for re-election? Why the Senate?
Yeah, thank you for that. When you serve a couple years, you start working on really great projects. Think about workforce and housing bills that I've worked on, and you start to see positive momentum happen, and you want to continue that positive momentum. And I just really enjoy serving my community, serving my state. I love this state. I'm very proud of it, and I want this state to be an example across the nation for what good governance looks like, what a strong economy looks like, what affordable, affordable homes look like, and good paying jobs. And I don't want to price anybody out of the state. So a lot of the workforce and kitchen table topics are what really inspire me to continue to just drive a good economy here in Arizona.
Okay, and you've got experience of one term, but what do you see as the job of a legislator?
Thank you. That's a great question, because I think first and foremost, the job of a legislator representing, we have about 250,000 people in this district. So your job is to listen first and foremost. So that's one thing I've really prided myself on, is I will meet with anybody. As long as everybody's talking respectfully, we can always meet, we can discuss. I want to hear you. And a good example of that is the housing bill that I had. Definitely heard from my constituents on that bill was not the right way to go. So we pulled that bill off the docket and turned it into a study committee, which we're actually starting tomorrow. It's the first meeting down at Capitol. Will go all the way through December to really study a complex topic. So my role is to listen first, understand the needs of my community, and then vote accordingly.
Just kind of refresh our memories here, and let the viewers know what was that piece of legislation, or explain it a little more.
Yeah, it was HB 2674, and it was addressing the housing shortage that we have in Arizona. So we have about 300 people a day moving here from all over the nation, and we don't have enough housing. Housing demand is not kept up with the influx of residents, and we're going to use the study committee to understand why supply cannot keep up with demand. So it's about all spectrum of the housing piece. It's not just affordable housing. It's not just luxury apartments. It's not just single family ranch style homes. It's all homes. Why aren't we building enough across the state? This is also a national problem in several states. And so we're going to really dig into that this year with the study committee and understand why we can't build enough to meet demand.
All right, so let's talk about the budget. So what are your thoughts on our spending priorities? I'm assuming you voted for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did vote for it. So you can tell a lot about a state's priorities based on its budget. I think it's 53% of the state budget goes to education. So that's a really great, it's the biggest chunk of the state budget goes to education. So that's a very good mark to tell you how big of a priority it is for state government. And state government has been run at the legislature and the governor's office by Republicans for quite a while now. So it's consistently been something Republicans have added to is education. But also what I'm very proud of this last budget, several things. First of all, $1 billion for water. And that's spread over 3 years, and that's going to allow a lot of innovative ideas on how to conserve, first of all, what we have now. So you talk about rainwater catchment, talk about drip system for agriculture instead of irrigation. Then it's also going to fund creative ways to bring water to the state of Arizona, whether that's working with Los Angeles or Mexico for desalinization, or whether that's going to be a pipeline from the Midwest when they have too much water to bring it in to refill the Colorado River basin or many of our reservoirs. So I love that aspect of the budget. I love that we invested over 500 million in the border. Immigration right now is a massive problem, and there needs to be attention there. So I think having that in the budget was appropriate. And then something that's near and dear to my heart when it comes to workforce and education is the adult education program that I spearheaded, and that had to do with 700,000 adults in Arizona don't have a high school diploma. And a lot of them are in their mid-20s, mid-30s. They have families now. And unfortunately, because they don't have a high school diploma, they're bouncing from job to job. This bill would allow them to not only get a high school diploma, but also get a trade certificate. So think respiratory therapy, welding, heavy diesel mechanic, things like that. These jobs pay very well, and they can completely break the cycle of poverty for the family, and also it helped the state out as well when it comes to return on investment for taxation, and then also services that they would not need to be out for. So that's exciting. And then I'm a big supporter of the community colleges too. So the community colleges for specifically Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal were finally given ongoing funding so that they can create great programs and get our workforce trained the way it needs to be.
What piece of legislation are you most proud of that you sponsored?
Yeah, I think I shouldn't have talked about it so much, but it's the adult education bill, I think.
Okay.
I'm a small business owner in some of a unskilled labor type company. And so I've had a lot of employees in the past that have not had a high school diploma, or maybe they did, but they were kind of bouncing from job to job, like I described. And I really pictured my employees when it came to that bill, and how great an opportunity to get them better training, because now they're a little bit older. Sometimes they have kids, and they realize that, you know what, I dropped out of high school for whatever reason, and now it's time to get my education squared away, get a certificate, and then join the workforce in a high-paying job. And so it was really, that was a labor of love, because that was a difficult bill, because you had multiple parties. It hadn't been done before, because multiple parties would attack each other, different interest groups on the adult education piece. And so this is the first year we were able to corral all the groups together, and we worked together to get that bill all the way to the governor's desk. And that was not easy, but I'm very proud of the coalition that we built to do that. It was bipartisan, and it's really going to change the trajectory of a lot of lives in Arizona. So I'm very excited to see that.
And how do you build coalitions there at the legislature? What's your style with that?
Yeah, so I was trained in the United States Army. I was in the Army for 8 years, and I was a civil affairs officer. So I was trained to, and understand the importance of build relationships. And then, once you have a relationship established, there's trust established, and you can do great things with that. So I got a chance to do that in Afghanistan. I've been an exchange student several times growing up in high school and college in different countries, living with their families. And so the fact that you have a different letter next to your name doesn't bother me. I'll build a relationship with you. My wife and I disagree on certain things, and guess what? There's lots of disagreements down at the Capitol too. So that's not that big of a deal to me, but I'll build relationships with everybody, because I treat everybody the same when I first meet them. And then if they give me a reason to not trust them after that, then they give me a reason not to trust them after that. But everybody has a blank slate with me when I meet them. And so I went in wanting to build relationships with all members down there. And those relationships that were formed early on were able to allow me to continue to ask people to trust me, because there's a lot of distrust down there. We had 3 separate adult education bills at one time, and I was shepherding all of them. They're all in my name, but we all had, these are the different groups I was talking about that would always historically fight against each other. And so we would work together, myself and the other legislators that were stakeholders from the other 2 groups, other 3 groups. And I would have to say, trust me, this bill will go up first like you want, so that you know that I'll vote for it, and then we'll put the other bill up after that. But that all starts with relationship building, and you have to do that down there. It's a legislative body. We all have the same vote, And there's no kings or queens down there, so you have to work together to get the most done.
All right. So people are really curious about this. What's your position on the expansion on school vouchers?
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. I'm a huge proponent of ESAs, of school choice. And it really boils down to, whose money do you think it is? Is it that brick and mortar school, or is it that child? And I firmly believe that that's the child's money for education. And that child should be able to decide with their family what is the best option for them. There are 1.1 million public school students in Arizona, roughly. There should not be a one-size-fits-all approach. I love my district schools. I've read books in my district schools. I went to Paradise Valley School District from kindergarten to 12th grade. Horizon High School is my high school that I graduated from. So to me, it's not about district versus anything else, or charter versus private. I think that is so disappointing when people go that route. We should be focused on the student first, and then teachers and parents. It's a triangle, and the student needs to be at the very top of that. If we're not focused on the student and we're focused on the school instead, that's the wrong calculus. We should always be focused on what's best for the student. And that student has an earmarked dollar amount for their education, and that student and that family should decide what that is.
All right. So I'm just getting notice from the control room that we only have time for one more question. And so what should be the priorities in the 2023 legislative session?
Yeah, great question. Water for sure needs to be right up front. That we need to put a little bit more meat on the bones of what we created this last session. I'm very concerned about the water supply that we have right now. Very concerned, and I think we need to really flesh that out. I think we need to continue to look at how our community colleges can increase our workforce. We have amazing companies moving here, like TSMC and some of these other larger companies, and they need skilled workers, and they can't find them. Even construction companies need carpenters, they need electricians and plumbers. Those all come from community colleges, from CTEDs. Those are things that we need to invest in to catch up with the workforce. And then also housing. So we need to have a robust discussion on housing this fall in the study committee, and then have some really great legislative ideas come out of that for the spring.
All right, Steve, I appreciate you coming tonight, and our viewers, I'm sure, appreciate it as well, and that they get to hear from you. And good luck on the campaign trail there. And we'll be coming back with the next group from Legislative District 3.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alvarado, the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times, and we're now on to Legislative District 3, where we have Representative John Kavanaugh, who's been serving his district as long as I've been at the Capital Times. I think I started in 2010. So, and we Representative Kavanaugh is a Republican, and we also have Thomas Duggar, a Democrat. And so thank you for coming, gentlemen. And the first question I want to ask is, and I've asked everybody the same question, is why are you running for office? Thomas, would you like to answer that?
Well, I decided to run after the recount fiasco with Cyber Ninjas, mainly because they didn't maintain chain of custody and cost us nearly $3 million worth of equipment that needs to be replaced. Plus, absolutely no transparency. Karen Fan is still refusing to turn over any documentation. And this is just not done in my industry. And this guy works in my industry, the Cyber Ninjas guy, and he absolutely did not have the credentials to be doing what he did. I don't, and I used to build scanning software and voting systems, and I don't even have the ability to do that kind of stuff. It was just a massive amount of taxpayer money just used for political grandstanding. And it got me upset enough that I'm like, you know what? The Senate needs somebody that actually understands IT. And I went and looked it up. There's not a single IT guy in the Senate, and there never has been. And, you know, in other states, IT guys are in there. So at least you have somebody who can say, oh, no, that's not how that works. I could have explained to people how this stuff works. I could have explained this to the Democrats and Republicans, that is not how you do this. This is not how you do that. It's all axiomatic. And I really think that I could make a huge difference because not only am I an IT guy, I'm a finance expert. And again, there's no finance guys in there. There's no real hardcore finance guys that have built the budgets for major, everything from small corporations to gigantic corporations like Chase and ABC Television and all these other places that I've worked at. I think I bring, like, I'm obviously a political outsider. I think I bring a lot of benefit to both Democrats and Republicans because I am, in a lot of ways, I'm a hardcore fiscal conservative. I'm mostly liberal on social issues, but I really think that the way we spend money, I didn't see any kind of studies or ROI computations, return on investment. And this is something I'm really good at that I've been doing in my job for a very long time. I really think I can help out the state.
Okay. And I just want to remind the candidates to, if you can keep your question or your answers to about a minute and a half, because we've got a lot of ground to cover in a very short time.
Okay.
So Representative Kavanaugh, you're doing it again. Why?
I like public service. All my life has been devoted to public service. When I was 15, I became politically aware, conservative. I walked into the conservative part of New York State and spent a lot of time volunteering over the ensuing years. The Republican Party at that time in 1965 was liberal in New York, so I was a refugee in the Conservative Party. After graduating from NYU, I became a Port Authority cop, which I served for 20 years. While I was a Port Authority cop, I spent 3 years on a town council in the small town where I lived, not where I worked as a cop, because again, I like public service. We were shutting down a landfill. I retired from the police in '93, came to Fountain Hills, started volunteering with the Parks and Recreation Commission. At the time, my full-time job was college professor, first at ASU and then at Scottsdale Community College, because I got a PhD in criminal justice. But during that time, I served 6 years on the Fountain Hills Town Council, and then I went to the legislature in 2006, where I've been ever since. So I've never been a professional politician. I have always had regular full-time employment to support myself and my family, but I believe in public service and I love public policy, and the two are a great mix. So that's what I do.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'll ask you, let you start this question. What do you see as the job of a legislator?
We're the legislative branch, but in reality, people don't realize this. We're actually the judges. But instead of being one judge in a courtroom or 3 or 9 judges on a panel, an appeals panel, we are 50 in the House, 60 individual judges, in the Senate 30. And we take testimony, we take evidence, we research things. And instead of voting guilty or not guilty, we basically vote yes or no on bills that involve every possible area you could think of. You know, the town council service is getting a little bit boring because the subject matter is limited. In the legislature, the subject matter is amazingly expansive. You literally deal with every possible subject imaginable, which makes it very challenging. But again, you know, I have a good background in research methodology and statistics from my doctorate and my teaching criminal justice. And I have a master's degree in government. So I'm in a pretty good position to weigh things, make corrections in bills, vote yes or no. I've been a committee chair, a probes chair for a long time. So, you know, that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm one of 60 judges, and we vote on budgets and policy.
So
But of course, we have the supreme governor who can veto that. So that's, you got to always keep an eye out for the governor on what he thinks.
So should we start calling you Judge Kavanaugh?
Well, no, well, I'll stay. I'm hoping for senator.
Okay, good enough. So Thomas, what do you think is the job of a legislator?
Well, first of all, I don't think they really do their jobs properly. A lot of what they do, it doesn't seem like they have any background, and they don't do proper research to actually compute whether or not something is going to make money for the state. So the reason why you do any kind of effort or make any kind of legislation is it either will help the state by making a profit or expanding systems that are actually going to make us money, or they are regulatory. There's 2 jobs. And what I see is a whole bunch of bills that have nothing to do with that a tremendous amount of time is being spent on while the water is dripping away. We have massive problems with water, and the solutions I've seen so far are almost like they're out of a comic book. They are just wildly off. I don't think anyone's done real research on this, and it's really disturbing. The job of legislation is to create and pass laws that will benefit all of the citizens. Right now, we have a system which is just completely one-sided. It's been one-sided forever, and both sides need to work together. I don't like this this whole environment where we do what we want because we have one more person than you. Inclusion is the key to democracy, and without that, we do not have democracy.
So I just got word from the people who are helping me that we've got a lot of questions about vouchers. And so, you know, our legislature recently made it possible for every Arizona public school student to be eligible for vouchers. So why is this a good thing or a bad thing? And I'll start with you, Thomas.
It's wildly inappropriate. It's against the separation of church and state. They can use those public funds for vouchers for religious things. Now, I'm very religious, much more religious than probably anybody in the Senate. But I absolutely believe in our Constitution is the separation of church and state. And if you use public money to pay for religious institutions, you have broken that rule. And that's number one. Number two, the people that go to private schools have the money anyway. They don't need vouchers. They are wealthy people. I know who they are because I used to go to, public school, to private schools. And I know lots of people that go to private schools, and private school people are wealthy. They don't need those vouchers. Meanwhile, we don't even have basic sustenance for so many school districts. It is absolutely tragic that we are diverting critical funds to a voucher system. Now, I am for charter schools. I do like some of how they're able to do it, but mostly in Arizona, it's because our budget for education is the lowest in the country per student. We're the worst. And that's the only reason why I think charter schools are necessary here. Now, to give out vouchers when we spend $8,000 per student. Alaska spends 17, Texas spends 12, New Jersey, all the Northeast spends over 20,000 per student. For some reason, Arizona is lost in the Middle Ages when it comes to spending per student. And that is the best gauge of how to improve the quality system. And this is why we don't have tech companies moving here. All we have is their call centers because they don't want their kids to go to these terrible public schools. When you look at how they're rated, they're awful, awful. And this needs to be improved because if we improve it, if we spend real money on education, we'll get the big companies, we'll get massive increase in tax revenue, and that will pay for the school, the budget increase right there. So I am not a fan of vouchers when the public school, I would be okay with vouchers if we were spending a reasonable amount on the public schools, but we're not. We're not even close. We're at the bottom. So to even bring up vouchers to me is almost a criminal idea to allow this. And it's completely breaking with the First Amendment. If you don't believe in the Constitution, then, push the vouchers. It's axiomatic. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Representative Kavanaugh,
Do I have any
a
time
good thing or a
left?
bad thing?
Do I have time left? First of all, vouchers, even to parochial schools, does not violate the US Constitution. The Supreme Court has said that. So there's no constitutional violation here. And in terms of draining money from public schools, that's not true either. We give about $11,000 a year to each public district school student. The students who get the vouchers only get $7,000 a year. So actually it's costing us less money to send students to these private schools, which would free up more money for public schools. I think vouchers are great because I think parents are the people who are in the best position to decide what's best for their children. And by the way, it's not just rich people who send their kids to private schools. A lot of poor people struggle to do that. My parents struggled to send me to parochial school. We were not rich people. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment. My parents slept on a couch in the living room so I could have the bedroom. We weren't rich. And there are a lot of poor families that desperately want to send their kids to private schools to give their kids the same advantages that wealthy people have. So it's not against the Constitution, and parents should make the decision. I don't have a problem letting parents decide. I think the vouchers and backpack funding, let the money follow the child, will also greatly increase competition and rise all of the schools. When charter schools started, they were said to be the death toll by district schools of education. In reality, research groups like Pew came out with studies that showed when a charter school opened near a district school, parent satisfaction and overall performance rose in both. You know why? A magic word, and something which Thomas should understand coming from the private sector: competition. It makes everybody a lot better and it increases their game. So I voted for the voucher program, and I hope we can keep it there because I think it's a good program and people have a right to choose where their kids go. And the government has a responsibility to fund education K-12.
Thank you, Representative. So let's move on to water. The governor just signed legislation to fund $1.2 billion in water projects, and specifically a possible desalination project and short-term projects, a slew of smaller short-term projects. So what are your thoughts on that legislation? Let's start with you, Representative Kavanaugh.
Well, I voted for it because it's a dire emergency that we're confronting, and it's not going to get any better. And it's going to have devastating effects not only on the Arizona economy, but you're going to have people, especially in Pinal County, whose home wells are going to be going dry. In fact, we have people in Rio Verde foothills in our district whose wells have gone dry and are having trouble with hauled water. Now it's going to be a mixture of new acquisition. And I don't know if this desalination plant in Mexico, I don't think it's a great idea. First of all, desal water is extremely expensive. And I'm a little concerned, and this is nothing to knock Mexico about, but I'm concerned about having something that big and that we rely on so much outside of the country. I don't think that's good policy either. But a lot of the money will also be spent for conservation measures, increased drip irrigation, reducing evaporation from canals, and I think that's good. I wish, and I was trying with other members like Representative Cobb to tie this overall water measure to greater steps to control the pumping of aquifers in Arizona counties whose aquifers are going dry. They don't want to have control. The whole state should be an active management area. Nobody should be able to build any house unless there's a 100-year assured water supply. And unfortunately, a lot of the rural legislators and representatives, both Democrat and Republican, they're concerned about economic development in the area. If you can't keep pumping and bringing water, you can't have development. So they oppose reasonable measures to stop the waste of water and the draining of aquifers. But I voted yes because we need to do something, and I hope we can come back and start getting better regulation of the water that we have right now.
Thomas.
Did I hear just regulation from a Republican? Anyway, I think desalinization plants are wildly expensive. For this to actually work, it would take decades. By that time, our farmers will have already all gone under. There is only one thing that will work in this state, and that is what they are doing in Pinal County. They are converting these farmlands to solar fields. And they're actually making more money than they were with their crops. Arizona is a desert. We do not have water. We have a 70% deficit in water right now. And it's not getting any better. People have just ignored climate change long enough that we can't go back. We don't have any choices, so we need to move forward. And what do I want to do? I want that land to be leased out to solar fields so that the farmers make money. They don't lose their livelihood, because right now the farmers are going to lose everything. It's set up as a waterfall, with all different tier levels. I went through a whole program with this, and it's insane that nobody is taking real proactive measures. A real proactive measures is we can't grow food in a desert anymore. We can't do it. Neither can California, neither can Nevada. All of these places need to switch to being energy exporters. We could literally have we could serve the energy for the entire country, Canada, all of South America, just by reclaiming this land and turning it into solar fields. All the agriculture needs to move to now these climates that are perfect for agriculture. You've got all of Canada, you've got North Dakota, you've got Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, everything along the Mississippi. These are the places where they have plenty of water and there's no issue. See, if we move it, Arizona becomes incredibly financially sound. Nobody goes bankrupt. The farmers make money. And we move our growing to areas that have water supplies. Bringing the water supply here doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It takes, like, the one thing that the governor proposed was this canal to the Mississippi. That would take 30 years.
We got about
now.
30 seconds left, Thomas.
Yeah, we just need to do something now. And it has to be much bigger than a desalinization plant that is quasi-effective. And we would need hundreds of them to come even near the capacity we need. What we need to do is do common sense things. What is the return on investment on solar fields? It's enormous. I've seen where they're making up to $43,000 per acre. I mean, that's more than they were making on their crops in their net. This is really an obvious fix for a Sunbelt state that doesn't have water. And California should be doing this. I don't know why they're not. And Nevada needs to do this too. These are 3 states that don't have water. We've got a huge amount of country that has amazing resources for growing food, and we just need to shift. The climate shifted, we need to shift, but nobody has to lose.
All right. Well, that's all the time we got, gentlemen. I wish I had I got about 10 more questions, but got to move on to the next legislative district. And I just want to say thank you.
Is there going to be one of these forums before the general election?
I'm not quite sure.
I suppose you can save your questions, but okay.
So anyway, thank you for coming, and good luck on the campaign trail there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice to meet you, John.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Take it easy.
welcome back. I'm Gary Grotto with the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times, and we're now on to Legislative District 4. And joining us for this discussion is John Arnold, a Republican. Janet Jackson, also a Republican, was unable to make it. So you got the floor tonight, John. And so I'm going to ask you questions that I've asked all the other candidates that we've spoken with tonight so far. And start off by just asking you, why are you running for office?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. That's the question I hear or I get the most on the campaign trail. I love this country. I love the state of Arizona. I fell in love with this state. And it has so much to offer me and my family. And the future can be so bright, but I see challenges with the state and what is happening. And I want to make sure that my 4 kids know that I'm part of the solution to those challenges and not just someone that sits around and complains about it. I'm going to actually go do something about it. And I think with my leadership background and business credentials, I think I'll be able to be the best representative to take one of these 2 House seats here in LD4 and be able to forward real meaningful, practical change for the benefit of the citizens of LD4 and all of Arizona.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself. You mentioned your leadership skills and I think you said your business skills.
Yeah. So my background is I am a small business owner. So for 22 years, I've been an investment advisor here, licensed in securities here in Arizona. And about 12 years ago, started my own firm, Southwest Wealth Strategies. So I'm a business owner and then also a family man. And so every bill and every challenge that comes across my desk, I'm going to look at that issue with those 2 glasses on. And so I'm a big, very, very involved member of my community of Scottsdale, a member of a big charity organization here in our local community, which allows me to kind of see and hear and touch and get in reach of all sorts of different citizens throughout our community. And then also through this campaign, have really gotten involved and really gotten in detailed in the neighborhoods and meeting all sorts of folks and groups in Arcadia, Paradise Valley, Desert Ridge, and the Biltmore area. So super excited to be able to represent those fine folks down at the state capitol.
All right. So what do you think is the job of a legislator?
Well, the technical job of the legislator is to produce a budget for the governors to sign and to put laws forward that are in the best interest of the citizens of our society. And so that job I would take very, very seriously and very, very excited to be a part of. And the skills needed to be a great legislator are skills like having good judgment. I think sometimes in today's world, we don't put enough value on those people or legislators that have actual good judgment. They actually have a track record of good judgment. If somebody is just has a loud voice, but their resume indicates failure after failure after failure, that's probably not a good legislator. Someone I think that we should put forward, and I would humbly submit that I'm part of that category, is someone that has good judgment, looks at issues with logic, not emotion, can communicate and negotiate and create a policy path to put bills forward that are going to do the best for the citizens of Arizona. And I believe I can do that.
All right. So the governor just signed an $18 billion budget. What are your thoughts on this budget that just got passed?
Well, I'm all over the map. I know that there's a lot in this budget that was a one-time due to the massive tax gross receipts that we had. And so it ballooned up pretty high. I don't love that. I'm a fiscal hawk. I like, lower fiscal, lower budgets, smaller budgets. I'll be a legislator that would look under every cushion to find every dime we can. But there are necessary investments that as a state we need to make. Infrastructure, I think that's very, very important. I do like the investment in our water future. I want to make sure it gets spent wisely, however. that will be something I will certainly want to keep an eye on. On the education piece, our education funding per student is not keeping up with the average of other states. My solution, I would want to be a Republican that raises teachers' compensation to their pockets without raising taxes. And I have a plan on how we can do that. I think we need to compensate and respect our teachers much, much more than we currently do, but without raising taxes. So that would be that's a part of where some of the budget line items went that I can see is important. So those are two pieces that I do like. There are a lot of parts of it that I do think are bloated. By definition, governments have bloated budgets and they're not oftentimes the accountability to make sure that is spent wisely just in government in general is not there. And so, as a business owner, I would take those glasses to look at that state budget. I've written budgets for 20 years, so I'll have a lot of experience in that area. There are, of course, necessary investments and expenses of government that we have to have, but they also need to be done and looked at with very, very smart glasses, and I think I can provide that.
Can you expand a little bit on your plan to raise teacher salaries without raising taxes?
Well, there's a couple of things. Number one is I would look at pension reform. It's 2022, and yet we continue to make teachers, they have no choice to put 12% of their compensation into pension plans. Every other private citizen gets to choose to do that. So that's one area where we could put a lot of money back into teachers' pockets right from the get-go, or at least give them the choice. That is the key element, is give them the choice. Again, it's not, we're not in the 50s where someone's going to go into a career and they're going to be there for 30 years. We have a very mobile employment society where people are, have a job for 5-7 years and then they go do something else. So, and now when they have a defined contribution plan account, 401k or 403b, they move from one employer to the next. That retirement plan transitions with them. I just want to be able to have the state match the money they're ready to allocate towards teachers, but do it on a matching basis and not necessarily through the pension. And thereby, if you have a 23-year-old teacher that does not want to, you have a teacher that doesn't want to have to put money into the pension because they want to raise their standard of living, they should do that. So I think that's one of the areas that we should look at. And then another one is I would want to look at and study the viability of fast forwarding, selling off some more state assets to raise more money for education. I think we could kill two birds with one stone there. And that it would be if we sold off some more state land to raise revenue for education, we not only have more land for home builders, we're in a housing crisis, and then we'd also be able to get more money towards education. So those are two ways, and I've got a few others, but those are the two major ways. Again, put more money in the teachers' pockets and not raise taxes.
All right. So this next question is from an legislative District 4 constituent. What are your plans for increasing equitable access to childcare and preschool?
Could you ask the question again?
Yeah. What are your plans for increasing equitable access to childcare and preschool?
Well, that to me, that seems primarily as a private sector type of concern, where private or preschool is something that is not necessarily mandated in the state constitution. But I would be in favor of making sure that employers have good education. A lot of employers now are putting forth daycare facilities within their business buildings. I think that's a great solution. We're in a big labor shortage right now. And so it behooves the businesses to be able to provide those type of extra services to working families and working mothers that need to put their child in childcare to be able to have jobs. I think that if people looked, they'd be able to find that as a service that a private business could be able to provide.
All right. So what should be the priorities in the 2023 legislative session?
boy, there's a lot there. Some of the areas that the first thing I would want to do is to look at the success at how the budget, I think it was 350 million from the budget that is going towards the border security. I would see where that's allocated, the success of that, and then look to build upon that. If the federal government continues to fail us as Arizonans, then we need to continue to look at securing the borders. That would be issue number one for me, is because when we have poor illegal immigration coming into this state, and we're only one of 4 states in this great country that has to deal with this. This is a federal government issue, and we, one of 4 states, have to deal with it. And these issues bleed into all parts of our society, whether it be education, social services. Our expenses in social services dealing with illegal immigrants is far more than it is in Iowa, as an example. Why? Because we're on the border. So if the federal government's going to fail us, what I'd want to do is put a little more resources there and then put the bill back at the federal government's hands when the time is right. So that would be issue number one. Issue number 2 I would look to is to continue to work towards reducing taxes and regulations to the best that we can that is sensible for our state government, to continue the progress and the momentum that we have in the business community, the job growth that we have here, which continues to produce great tax revenue, and then also be able to have a society where we continue to be somebody or a state that is desirable for other people and other citizens from other states, particularly California. Leave your politics at the border, but bring your hard work ethic, bring your business here. We as Arizonans, we value that. Your family values, we value that. So, that's by our policies of being pro-business friendly is why those people want to come here. We need to continue upon that. And I look forward to expand those policies when I get to the state capitol.
All right, you got about 30 seconds for a few final words. Why should people vote for you?
Great question. And that's actually why I took this call tonight, and all my competitors did not, is I'd like to introduce myself essentially to the Capitol community. I am a complete, total political outsider, and I like that. And the citizens of my district like that. And I think that I'm the best candidate because I'm going to bring a different viewpoint. I don't have the mindset that other politicians have. I have the mindset of coming from the ground up, from the grassroots up. And I think our citizens like that I'm the political outsider. And the second reason, and by the way, in my primary, we've got good candidates. We all believe like 90 to 95% of the same stuff. But which one of us can go and actually get the job done? And I have a track record of getting the job done in the private sector. And I'm going to take those skills and those leadership capabilities and bring it to the Capitol. Our district should be one of the most powerful districts in the state. And we need leaders. And we should have a strong candidate, a strong leader to come out of our district and be able to go and not necessarily push forward policy, but also be a leader amongst the peers there at the Capitol. And I believe I'm the best candidate to do that.
All right. Well, thank you, John. And good luck on the campaign trail there. And we're going to go take a little break here. And when we come back, we will be with Legislative District 5.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Welcome back. I'm Gary Grotto, the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times, and we're here tonight to hear from the candidates in Legislative District 5. We have with us Brianna Westbrook, Sarah Ligori, and Sarah Tyree. So thank you for coming and joining us on this, so people can meet you and find out a little bit about you. So the first question I ask everybody is, why are you running for office? I'll start with the incumbent, Sarah Ligori. Why
Hi
are you
there.
running for? Well, you were appointed, if I recall.
Yes.
So, you got a taste of this. Why are you running?
Yes. So this is my first campaign, and this time last year, never did I think I'd be running my first campaign, but here I am. So I am running when I got involved in the district, and I'll start there, out of a lot of concern and a lot of care. And so that is why I continue to run for this seat after my 9 months there in the legislature. And that is why I initially got involved with the Democrats in my district. I see Arizona as having a much brighter future and deserves a much better representation from our leaders at the legislature that listen and actually respond to them. And so that is what got me active in the district. And I pledged to my district when I was appointed to this seat that this would be my full-time job. And I would run for re-election before lines were redrawn if I was able to do, a worthwhile job. And so running again is something I want to do to continue on everything that I've learned the past 9 months. I'm now able to build upon and execute. And I just think that our Arizona citizens deserve people that are going to listen, that are going to show up, that are going to fight to defend their values, and that are going to put forward real solutions, not just to the problems, but for the issues that will drive us forward together as a state. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And let's go to the other Sarah here tonight. And so why are you running?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Tyree. I am the LD5 State Senate candidate. This is my second time running for office. And I really got my start in policy in 2011, and then again in 2017, where I was working for the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition as their legislative liaison. I ended up experiencing my own life-altering domestic violence. I was evicted, I lost my job, and was homeless for 6 months. And I just really couldn't get the help that I needed. And so I decided to run in 2020, and I'm back at it again because I believe that Arizona is ready for change. I believe that there are people who have historically been voiceless that are ready to use their voices and to support their champion. And I believe that LD5 specifically is changing. The demographics of our district are changing. We are a young, diverse business professional district. And I believe that I represent all of those qualities. And that's why I chose to run again for state Senate.
Thank you, Sarah. Brianna.
Well, I decided to run because there is not representation for the people at the state capitol. This district is more than a district to me. It is where my life started. My little brother was born at St. Joseph's Hospital in 1989. I experienced homelessness and eviction as a child in the Sunny Slope region of this district. And after we were evicted from my mom's apartment as a child, we actually slept in the parking lot at what was a Smitty's parking lot on 15th Avenue in Glendale. As we drive around the district, we see many of the issues are not being fixed. We see skyrocketing rent. We see a growing unhoused population. We see representatives at the state capitol that are supposed to be representing this district, advocating for bills that would create religious exemptions to discriminate this district's largest and most vibrant population, the LGBTQ community. So we need representation down at the Capitol that's going to center the needs of the people unapologetically, take on big, powerful corporate interests, and bring about change to build coalitions with leaders in other districts to create actually effective policy that materially changes people's lives.
All right, Brianna, thank you. So I'll go ahead and go back in reverse order and start with Brianna on this one. So what do you see as the job of a legislator?
The job of a legislator to me is to center the needs of the community. Often what we find in politicians is they're in politics for one of two reasons: power, or they're actually in it for change. All too often it's people that are in it for power. What they do is they make strategic votes to get notches under their belt to run for higher office. They listen to whoever the lobbyist is that's loading their campaign war chest with donations to pass bills. That's broken. I believe that as an effective legislator, we should be centering the needs of the people unapologetically. What that means is speaking truth to the power of these issues, continuing to meet voters where they're at even after the election, because all too often what we find is politicians come around when it's time to vote, but they disappear until it's the next election season. What I'd like to do is use my position of power to educate people in my community about the importance of voting. I'd like to turn this into a reliable democratic district, help elect school board, municipality candidates, and really engage voters and center the needs of the many.
Sarah Tyree, why don't you take this one? And I'll ask you first, or when we come to the next question, I'll start with you.
Very good. So to me, it's very similar to what Brianna said. I believe that as a state legislator, it is our job to represent the people who elected us. And not just the people who voted for us, but the entire district and thus the entire state. I believe regardless of whatever party you subscribe to, you have to be able to represent all of the people and not alienate anybody. It is about being people-centered. It is about giving those who are voiceless a voice. And truly, I believe that it is about making sure that we are bringing to the table the people who aren't generally at the table. Whether that is the unsheltered community, whether that's the LGBTQ community, whether that's the refugee community, we need to be bringing all of those people to the table, because all of these laws, all of these policies that we have the opportunity to make affect them. So as a state legislator, I believe one, it is to hold space for those communities, but it is also to use our power and create space for others. I think one of the things that we would have learned in the 2020 cycle is that the top of the ticket didn't hold space for the down ballot candidates. And I believe that as state legislators, there are races that are smaller than ours that we can create space for.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Sarah LaGorda, let me put a little twist on the question for you. Since you've been there, you said what, 9 months?
9 months.
Yeah. So is your idea of what a legislator's job is different now than when you started?
I think the day-to-day and the granular details and the procedural part of it is because, it is an institution down there. And so there are procedures and rules and, ways you need to talk. And there's just that being immersed in that so quickly. I had from November until January to figure out what policies I was going to run, who the stakeholders were, to meet with the lobbyists, to understand staff. It's a lot of onboarding, but I was able to kind of navigate that, pretty quickly and fairly well. And then I'll circle back. So I would say yes, but like any new job, it takes about 2 to 3 months to figure it out. So there is definitely a steep learning curve down there. But what a legislature should do, in my opinion, you do have the laws. So you are enacting and weighing in on laws and the legal side to some degree of each law. And then you are responsive and need to be dependent to your community and your district that you serve. And so when I look at the laws and the district, the two things that connect those are you need to be willing to listen and you need to be willing to learn. To the stakeholders, to the lobbyists, to the people whose lives the policy is going to hurt, to the people whose lives the policy is going to help. And then you also need to have the courage to lead and to be able to be decisive and make decisions based on not just your best judgment, but what logically makes sense, but then also what the people that you're representing, what the people who weigh in on requests to speak are saying, what the people whose policies these lives are going to affect are saying. So you've got to be able to listen and then, to lead with courage based on your, sound decision-making from all the listening and the learning that you've been able to do. So that's what I think the legislators should be doing down there.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So I'm sure you've read in the newspaper that the governor just signed an $18 billion budget. What are your spending priorities, Sarah Tyree?
Spending priorities are always public education. First and foremost, it has to go to public education. I think another piece for me is going to be the unsheltered community, especially within our district. We just continue to see a rise of unsheltered folk, and not necessarily just slapping a Band-Aid on it, but trying new solutions, things that we haven't tried before, and for once being progressive or thinking outside of the box. I think another piece that is really important to me is mental health. As it stands, I believe the people that have access to mental health are those that have great insurance. And if we can find as a state a way to ensure that everybody has access to mental health, therapy, those types of resources, what difference can we make in our community as a whole? What reduction in harm, what reduction in gun violence, what reduction in suicides would we see? And then also, I really think the two other pieces that are really important to me are our veteran community. Arizona has one of the largest populations of veterans, and yet we do some of the least for them. And so that is a community that I believe that we should be doing more for. And then finally, the DCS kids who are in DCS. It's really important to me as a foster youth that we shine more light on what our families and our children are experiencing in the foster care system. And ensuring that not only are we keeping families together and giving them the services that they need in order to be healthy and effective, but we're giving those children opportunities to go to college or go to trade schools or whatever it is, rather than just working, low-wage jobs.
And you're a veteran, right, Sarah?
I am.
Sarah Ligori, what are your spending priorities?
Yeah, I will piggyback on a lot of what Ms. Tyree just said. I think if you could, if I had buckets to fill money in, I would do education, the environment, healthcare, and housing. I think that, from my time as a citizen of this community and in various portions of this district for 16 years, and as a financial advisor, I've worked with a lot of families. And now just seeing the landscape and knocking on doors and hearing what people are saying, and where our communities are hurting, it's how do we get access to healthcare, to mental health care, to behavioral health care? So how do we fill those pots so that they're funded and they're financially feasible and able to run the programs that they need to and give access to the people that need them in the community? Housing, I worked in commercial real estate, and I have been alarmed about the number of affordable single-family homes that we've been building for going on 10 years now. And now we're just seeing a great exacerbation of what the pandemic has brought on with the number of people that have moved here, inflation, the cost of living. We're not affordable anymore for anyone making a medium salary, rental wise or to buy. So how do we inject money into, we got 60 million into the Housing Trust Fund. That was a start. The Democrats wanted 100 million. But what could we do as far as getting people, to stabilize their rents, to get them an injection of cash so that they could afford their rent and pay their rent so they don't slide into houselessness? That would be a big stopgap for me. So we don't see the expansion of people that are struggling to live in their homes or to find somewhere in their communities or near their schools to live. And for those, millennials or college students or even seniors to be able to stay in their home or to purchase a home. I think that's just a basic right in Arizona, and we should be paying as much attention. And that's where I'm going to turn my attention to next session. The environment, we might talk about water, but as much, as we can get a handle on, we had $200 million to the Water Conservation Fund, which was great. And then public education. I don't think anyone on the other ladies on this call would disagree that we are not funding public education, and it is intentional, and it and just hurting our students, plain and simple. And this year with the budget, we took, one step forward by funding education almost fully for the year, but then we took a step and a half back or 2 steps back with the expansion of the universal vouchers. And so that is, a gutting to the taxpayers there of money that could be going to public education that will now be diverted to to private and religious schools. So environment, healthcare, housing, and education would be my top priorities.
Okay, so we got about 4 minutes left. So Brianna?
Well, we have a lot of things that need funding. I think one of the most important, because it's kind of like the root of all evil, is actually getting big money out of politics. I think what we need to do is actually fund our public election system, our clean election system, so more candidates can run clean. And we can take the big money out of politics, because once we remove the money from politics, it's going to make passing all of these other policies that much easier. I believe that we need to invest in education, of course, as a candidate that's endorsed by the AEA. We need to make sure that we actually fund our education, pay our teachers a living wage, and take care of our students and get them prepared for adulthood. I believe we need to invest in smart infrastructure projects that are sustainable. Building a strong municipal broadband system, I think, would be huge. Investing in public transportation, because we're seeing the effects of high gas prices, right? And unfortunately, here in Arizona, most people actually drive to work alone in a car because our public transportation system is so poor. So we need to build more rail. We need to build smarter and prepare our societies for what we're moving into. Climate change is real. We need to make just investments and smart ones that lower our carbon footprint and reduce the effects of climate change.
All right, so we got about 3 minutes. Why should the voters of LD5 elect you? Start with Sarah Ligori.
Great wrap-up question. Well, I continue to lead with my work and not my words, and that's how I got down to the Capitol, was just the work that I was doing, the care that I bring to it, and the dedication that I have to make sure that we are turning Arizona into the place that it deserves to be and needs to be, which is more hospitable to all, more inclusive, more sustainable, and with a long-term projection for everyone in this state to be able to live happy and healthy lives. I think that I am able to deliver results. I ran the rainwater harvesting bill that I ran became the crux of what was the negotiations to inevitably bring Democrats the win of the $200 million to the Water Conservation Fund. So I've been able to get bipartisan alignment to speak to issues on both sides of the aisle, to build bridges essentially and relationships with my Republican colleagues down there to create a sense of urgency, whether it's housing or water issues. So I feel like I've been able to figure out the system the past 6 months there. I know what I want to go back down and work on as my priorities. And I believe I have the skill set and also the dedication to continue to deliver results to not just the Democrats in LD5 and not just LD5, but to the actual real solutions that all Arizonans are looking for, which are not talking about the culture wars or the propaganda or the conspiracies or the political divisiveness, but actually talking about what do our communities care about, what are they hurting for, and being able to go out and speak to them and then advocate for them at the Capitol and then delivering results to them. So that's why I'm running again and why I hope to remain a state representative for LD5.
Great.
Thank you.
Sarah Tyree.
Thank you. So when I think about why LD5 should choose me as their next state senator, one reason is it's just apparent. My main opponent has been in office since 1977. It is time for new leadership. It's time for the next generation to stand up and say that we're ready to lead, because we are ready to lead. And I'm here to be that representation. Additionally, the last time that we elected a Black state senator was in 2010. It's far past time that we bring that inclusiveness that Representative Ligori is talking about. It's time that we bring in Black queer women. It's time that we elect those people and bring them to the table so that all voices are heard. I want to take the rest of my time to remind our independent voters that you can vote in this election. All you have to do is go to your county recorder's office, whether you do it online or in person, and you request a one-time ballot. You can request a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot, but you are able to vote in the primary election. For LD5, whoever wins the primary election wins the election. There aren't any Republicans running against us, so there won't be, in theory, a November election. So please take into consideration all of the candidates that showed up today, because that says a lot. It says that we're here. It says that we're here for you and that we are ready to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Brianna, you got the last word.
Wonderful. Well, LD5, I'm an effective communicator and coalition builder. I've been working in Phoenix for over a decade and multiple different struggles, whether it's immigrant rights work, climate work, housing work, electoral work to help out the vote for the Democratic Party. I walk the walk and talk the talk. I am unapologetically progressive, which is this district. We are 69% registered Democrats here. What that means, we should lead on bold policies. I can use my communication skills to break down walls with people that have a difference in opinion than mine. I do that currently as in the space of technology at GoDaddy, a good Arizona company. I talk to small business owners every single day and help them increase their revenue. I'm a doer. What I do is, I lead, and I lead by example. And I have a long track history of that. And I think that's why our campaign has actually earned more endorsements than any other candidate in this race. And I think that also validates the fact that I can build these coalitions that are needed to actually move our state forward. I'm doing everything that I possibly can to uplift other candidates in other districts as well, because I want to hit the ground running when I get in there as your state representative. I want to get in there and immediately get to work. I've had to work my entire life twice as hard to achieve the bare minimum. And that's what I will do every single day that I'm down at the state capitol. I'm down there fighting for you and only you. And that's why I've taken no corporate PAC money. I'm not beholden to anybody but the people that I serve. And that's a refreshing sense of peace that should bring voters, that you're getting somebody that's actually rooted in compassion and empathy and will actually champion the policies that meet the moment for the many. And I'm not going down there selfishly for my own ambitions to run for Congress and get notches under my belt. I'm running to actually do the work, pass bills, and actually materially change people's lives.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to all the candidates. We were supposed to have Legislative District 6 after this, but that's not going to happen tonight. And just want to thank everybody who showed up tonight and took the time to talk to your constituents, talk to the voters. And tomorrow night we will have Legislative Districts 7 through 12, and one of these every night this week. So once again, thank you. And I want to thank the sponsoring this, and we will be back tomorrow and we'll see you then. Thank you.